Hi everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to your Excel VBA 2-hour absolute beginner course. Hopefully you've done the first session. Hopefully you did it yesterday. If you're watching live, how did it go? Perhaps it was your first introduction to Excel VBA. Let's quickly talk about what we did. We did how to set up your system for Excel VBA. We did working with ranges. And then right at the end, we did this crazy piece of code that we're going to go through today and build from there. So hopefully you've got a little bit of confidence working with Excel VBA. And more importantly, I'm trying to light a fire. I'm trying to light a fire within you, get you excited about the possibilities of Excel VBA, because if you can foster a positive addiction to Excel VBA, that's the way to get really good at it and to get it working for you in your career. Now, if you want to get into the learning content, just skip forward a couple of minutes. I'm just going to go into the chat now, see who we've got with us. Okay, we're still getting warmed up in the chat. A big welcome to Albert. Albert, where are you watching from? Did you watch the session yesterday? And a big welcome, and I hope you're going to get plenty out of today's session as well. So let me know in the chat, guys. Where are you watching from? What stage are you at with your Excel VBA learning? And any questions as we go along, just put those in the chat as well. So with that said, I'm going to get back into the Excel file. Well, in fact, let's just quickly remind ourselves what we're trying to cover, just kind of orientate ourselves quickly. So yesterday we got set up for success, getting the developer tab visible, saving in the right file format, all of that useful stuff. Hopefully that's all working on your system. We did your first macro using message box. We tried using the macro recorder. Brilliant facility in Excel, allows you to generate your own code. You set it off, you do something in Excel, and then Excel generates the code for what you do. A great way to learn Excel VBA. We spoke about debugging. Remember, we can hit debug and step into, and that means we can step through the code. And if we get the setup where we can see Excel and the VBA editor at the same time, that is also a great setup for Excel VBA. And today, we're going to push on with these really. So we've done a little bit about interacting with cells. We've touched on variables just slightly. We have created a loop. We haven't done anything with conditional statements yet, and we've just touched on position control. So we're going to try to work through these today. And also, don't forget our Excel meta skills. If you can get good at the meta skills, really, everything else is going to come. Let's just remind ourselves what those meta skills are. Intelligence is knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. So you've got to learn to debug. When things aren't working, how do you get to the root of the problem? You've got to use Excel's debugging aids like step into, hitting the F8 key. I spent a good chunk of my career doing that, I think. We spoke about annotation and comments. So using the inverted comma, that's going to turn the text green, and Excel is going to ignore that when it executes the VBA. Where are you going to go for help? You might go to Google. I hope you'll also consider coming to our Members Monday community. We're going to be talking more about that in the stream. And I've got a special surprise for you at the end of the stream. Make sure you hang around for that. The idea of having real world techniques and then translating them to applications. You know, code is translation. We've got all these fancy techniques, but how do they actually solve real world problems? You've got to be a bit of a translator there. Then most importantly, never giving up. And one way to avoid giving up is really to celebrate, love those punch the air moments when everything works. So let's see if we can get there today. We've got a few people tuning in. Big welcome to Bart. Big welcome to Henrik. How are you doing, Henrik? Thank you for the comment on the previous video. And Albert is watching from the Netherlands. So Albert hasn't watched part one, so it's there for you on the channel. The most recent video, apart from this one on the channel, is part one of this series. This is your two-hour Excel VBA absolute beginner course. So without further ado, let's get back into Excel. I'm picking up from yesterday with the Excel file. Now, I'm not going to share this file with you. There's a reason for that, because rather than just using this file, I want you to go back to the first session and at least copy out the code. Yeah, so I want you to start doing coding yourself. Code is a skill. If you don't do it, you won't get any better. Just watching the video won't get you better. But if you start using your fingers and the keyboard, getting into it, you're going to get better quickly. So Developer tab, we talked about how to make that visible yesterday. You can see that in yesterday's video if you need to. And then our all-important configuration of our display. So Windows key and up, Windows key and right puts the VBA editor in the right-hand half of the screen. And then Windows key and left. Suddenly, we've got Excel and the VBA editor side by side. I said yesterday, it's great if you've got two screens, but you don't need two screens. I've got a 13-inch laptop here that I do a lot of coding on, and this is the setup that I usually have. Big welcome to Fahmi. Fahmi, how are you doing? Tuning in from Tunisia. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so let's just refamiliarize ourselves with the VBA editor. We've got what we call the Project Explorer here. Now, code usually lives in modules. I was a bit disappointed yesterday. I put some code in this sheet module. I don't actually recommend doing that. I recommend putting code in modules. How do you create a module? You go to insert a module, and we can see our code from yesterday we've got right here. So we ended with the intrigue of this complicated routine. And our aim today is really to get into this routine and to understand it. So yesterday we had the idea of a for next loop. A for next loop, and we spoke about that yesterday. We're going to deal with a couple of other loops now. Just one other loop I think we'll deal with now. We have time because it's so important for you to learn how to loop through Excel, how to create loops in Excel VBA rather. Now, yesterday we touched a little bit on the language of Excel and Excel VBA. Can you remember, what does Excel consist of? Essentially, when you boil it down, what does Excel consist of? Well, it consists of objects. Those objects have properties that we might want to manipulate, for example, the value in a cell, and objects are organized into collections. That's what I want to focus on today, this idea of objects being organized into collections. So what's an object? So a cell is an object in Excel. A worksheet is an object. The file itself is an object. So if I'm just add some worksheets to the file, and just take a second to note that when you add worksheets to the file, they will appear in the VBA editor. What I've done is I've added to the worksheets collection, That's because the worksheet is an object, and objects are organized into collections in Excel. So we've got to understand this basic linguistic point to be able to harness the particular type of loop that I'm going to show you now. So this is called a for each loop. And I love for each loops because they allow us to work with collections of objects in Excel. Once again, we do need a variable. A variable, as we know from yesterday, is just a small part of the computer's memory, a place for storing some information that's relevant to the code. What we're going to do, I'm going to say dim Chris sheet this time as worksheet. We're going to see if we can do something with this worksheet collection, the worksheet collection. We could use the cells collection. We could use the cells in the selection collection. We could use the charts on the worksheet collection, many different collections we could use. I'm going to use the worksheet collection. To do that, I have to declare a variable, and this type of variable is a worksheet variable. Yep, this syntax is fixed. Dim variable name as variable type. Usually we're using integers and string variables. In this case, because we're going through a collection, we do need a worksheet variable. Now, this name should be informative. Yeah. Now, a mistake you might make is to say, I'm just going to use worksheet. Now, you can't use worksheet because certain words like worksheet, cell, column are reserved for Excel only. That's why I always say Chris sheet, because it's kind of unique. You know, Excel is not going to be using my name for something, so that guarantees that it's going to work as a variable, and it's informative. We know from the name of the variable roughly what it's doing. Then we've got this formulation. So this is a for each loop. We're going to say for each variable name in the name of the collection. Now, how do we reference the worksheets collection? We're going to say this workbook, which is the workbook that contains the code. This workbook.worksheets, we're going to say. We might just be able to say sheets there. So we've got for each variable name in collection, and then we're going to say next Chris sheet down at the bottom here. So we've got the name of the variable repeated there. And this is a pattern. Language is about pattern. Coding is about patterns. And the pattern is for each variable name in collection name, and then next variable name down here. So what's going to happen? Now, this is supremely powerful. It doesn't look very exciting yet. It doesn't feel very exciting. We haven't done anything with it. But what we're going to do is just say, message box again that we practiced yesterday. We're going to say chrissheet.name here. Okay, there we go. So what's going to happen? Now, if you're watching on the replay, Just see if you can stop the video and try to understand what might happen here. From all the information on the screen, particularly this information down here, you're going to be able to work out what's going on. Big welcome to Charles tuning in. Charles, I haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing? And let's go ahead. Now, how can we understand this code? Well, we could just play the code, of course, but even better, you could go to debug and step through the code. I'm going to hit the F8 key here, and we can see message box sheet 1, message box sheet 2. I'm just hitting the F8 key, stepping through the code, message box sheet 3 there. Interesting stuff. Now I'm going to go ahead to demonstrate the power of loops. I'm going to put 2 more sheets in the file. We can see those sheets appearing in the VBA editor. I'm just going to play the code this time. Sheet 1, sheet 4, sheet 5, sheet 2, sheet 3. So a loop is a repeated instruction, and all Excel is doing there, it's looping through all of the sheets in the file. Now, hopefully, talking about, trying to light a fire, hopefully you're seeing the possibilities of that on its own. That's just kind of annoying, but let's suppose you wanted to do something to each sheet in the file. I'm going to say, just change this syntax slightly. So Chris sheet is our variable name. That's the syntax that we use to reference the sheet that we're currently looping through. I'm going to say Chris sheet.range A1 equals now. What about this syntax, this now syntax? Well, Excel knows what the time is. It knows your system time. And in VBA, we can harness that and we can just put the time in a cell. Bit of an obscure thing to do, you might say, but it's really useful if you generate a report in VBA and then you want to know when the report was last generated, for example, to be able to write the time in the cell is really useful. So what's going to happen here? I'm just going to go ahead and run this code, use the F5 key, and I can see, if I go to the top left here, I can see the time and the date is now displaying in cell A1. Not only that, it's displaying in all of the sheets in the file in cell A1. Are you feeling the power of loops here? So if you did want to do that, if you wanted to display the current time in a cell in each cell in the file, on each sheet in the file, you'll be able to do that using this syntax. But clearly, you'd want to do more sophisticated things than that, and you can do it with a little more Excel VBA. So this is our second loop type. We've got our for next loop. That's just when we're looping from one cell to the next. We want to loop through some numbers, 1 to 10, something like that. But if we want to harness collections in the file, collections of objects, we've got our for each object in a collection formulation. Now practice this using Google. Practice this and try to loop through cells in a range. Try putting some charts into the spreadsheet and loop through the charts and loop through the open files. All of these collections are supremely useful to us, and we can loop through them in order to get things done. Excuse me. Charles, you're saying you're busy, but doing great. Hope everybody is the same. How's everybody doing in the chat? Thanks for watching today. See, we've got 20 people watching. Fantastic. Make sure you leave me a comment where you're watching from. We're near Nottingham here in the UK, out in the countryside near Nottingham. It is a swelteringly hot day. I've been doing a lot of driving today, so it's nice to be relaxing now in the office. I've got to have the windows open today behind you, so you might be able to hear some kind of countryside background noise. Let's not worry too much about that. So you've got 2 supremely powerful tools in your Excel VBA toolkit, 2 looping tools there. So this is the idea of loops. Let's go back to our orientation slide and let's just try to tick off some techniques here. So interacting with cells, variables, we'll dip into variables quickly now. Loops, we're pretty much covered, so we can tick those off. Let's go into variables quickly. We've just been touching on variables, and we've already used 2 types of variable. We've got an integer variable here. We're using an object variable, a worksheet variable here. But let's just test our definition of what a variable is. What's an easy, user-friendly definition of a variable in Excel VBA or in computer programming generally? It's just a place to store information. In my office here, I've got shelves, I've got little drawers. All of those just hold things that are useful to me. It's kind of the same with a variable. It's just going to hold some information that's relevant, that's useful in the programming in some way. It's a bit like a cell in the spreadsheet, but a cell in the spreadsheet we can see, whereas a variable the user can't see unless we tell VBA to show it to the user. So let's do a quick test of this idea. So let's say sub variable test here. Okay, and let's dig into this idea that a variable is quite comparable to a cell in many ways. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a couple of numbers in cell E3 and E5 here. And I'm going to use a variable to help us do this, a very simple sum operation. Now, clearly you could do this with a formula, and there's a big discussion about what should you do with formulae and workbook facilities, worksheet facilities. What should you do with VBA? Be aware of that and kind of develop a view on that through your career. What's the best balance? What should it be? But for learning purposes, we're going to try to do this using VBA. So I'm going to say dim results, so an informative name for the variable, as integer here. And then I'm going to say dim input1 as integer, and then dim input2 as integer here. Okay, there we go. So I've just created 3 spaces for Excel to store information. So we just want to add up these 2 numbers. How would we go about doing that? Well, let's do it just by referencing the cells first. So stop the video. You know how to interact with cells in Excel VBA. How could you get the results of these numbers? So I could do it again using a message box. I'm going to just reference these cells and say range E5. It's going to work. We're going to see range E5 plus range F5 here. If this has worked, what are we expecting to happen? Well, a message box should flash up showing E5 plus F5, which should be 8. I'm going to hit the F5 key or just hit the play button up here, and you can see 8 flashing up here. So let's just always do some play, some experimentation, consolidate your understanding. Going to hit play again, and we've got 6 there. Okay, so we can interact directly with the cells, and often that's all you need. But as you move forward in your career, you're going to want to do more sophisticated things, not always using cells. So how could we do that? Do this differently, do it all in VBA, use those little places we've created, those variables to store information. Let's try it this way. So input 1 equals, I'm going to say range E5 here. So this formulation, we're not unfamiliar with, are we? So range equals 1, a range E5 equals 1. We dealt with that yesterday. So it's not totally unfamiliar to us, this kind of formulation. But what this is going to do, whatever is in the left side of the equals, that's going to take on the value of the right side of the equals sign. This is the basic A equals B formulation. Now, to prove this, I'm going to hit the F8 key, execute this line of code, because remember, when the code is highlighted, the code hasn't executed yet. I want to execute this line of code. Then I'm just going to hover the cursor over the input1 variable. Now we know a variable is a place to store information. We can only see that if we externalize it in some way. One way to externalize it, at least briefly, is to hover your cursor over there. So input equals 1. So we're seeing that information going into the variable. I'm going to change this to 7. Once again, hit the F8 key on the Windows PC, hover the variable over, and I can see input1 equals 7. So are you believing me now that we can get information from the spreadsheet into these very abstract things that are called variables? 23 minutes in. How's everybody doing? Charles saying you can't hear the background noise. Good stuff. Luckily, no tractors have come past. It is a busy season for farmers, so I'm sure we'll see some at some point. Big welcome to Martin. How are you doing? Clacton on Sea. That sounds like somewhere where there would be nice weather too. Fantastic stuff. And a big welcome to Barry in the Southeast US. How are you doing, Barry? Thanks for being with us. Any questions you've got, guys, just put them in the chat. Very happy to deal with them there. Let's have a quick change of view here to maximize the coding window. So if you're watching, if you're doing this on the replay, stop the video now. Try to complete this. Using variables, can you complete this sum operation? Let's go ahead. I'm going to say input 2 equals range F5 this time. So now I've got 2 values into 2 variables in Excel VBA. So how do we complete this? Well, we just say results. equals input 1, excuse me, and I'm going to externalize the value of the variable using a message box. Now, this is a bit different, isn't it? Because usually when we use message box, we use speech marks around the text. Why haven't we used speech marks here? We haven't used speech marks because this isn't text we want to display, isn't it? Is it? This isn't text. This is a variable. This is going to display the value held in the variable. That's why we don't have speech marks around it. Difficult to understand. Let's see it in action. I'm going to hit the F8 key here. Input 1 is 7. Input 2 is 5. I can see 5 in cell F5. Result is 12. 7 plus 5. And then hit F8 again. Get the message box up. And you can see we're not showing result. We're not showing the text. There's no speech marks around it. We're showing the value stored in the variable there. So that's the power of variables. And once again, that's not particularly powerful, is it? But just getting the idea that you can store information out of the sight of the user, manipulate it, use it to control your routines. This is the idea of variables. They're just a place to store information. Now what's going to happen? Here's one for the more advanced students. What's going to happen here and why? Once again, stop the video. What's going to happen here and why? It might not be quite what we expect. Again, one for the more advanced students anyway. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. In fact, because we're about halfway through, let me tell you about why we're doing all this. We're doing all this. We're having 3 live sessions in 3 days to celebrate our Members Monday community. We've had 100 sessions for Members Monday, and we're going live for 3 days to help publicize it and just tell you that this community exists. I was speaking to one of our members today. It's totally unique Members Monday. You get like university level tuition and interaction and learning materials for an absolute fraction of the cost. We've got a small group of learners. It's a great place to learn. Excel VBA, it's a unique learning community. What do you get? You get 2 monthly live sessions with me. So for the first 6 months of this year, I've been so busy with projects, haven't been able to do many videos, but Members Monday, we've been doing 2 live sessions a month. So you get that guaranteed time with me. You also get the community page, so you can put your questions on there. You're going to get high quality answers from me and the rest of the community. And we have our amazing content navigator resource. So all of the previous Members Mondays, there's 98 of them. We index them all in the content navigator, and you can go to the different topics. It allows you to get exactly what you need in for your Excel VBA learning in a very bespoke way. So this is our Members Monday community. Go ahead. The link is in the description below this video. I'd love you to at least consider joining us in Members Monday. So this is our question. What's going to happen now? And Henrik is saying, yep, you must use another variable apart from integer. Very interesting. So here we're talking about the type of variable. Is that going to be problematic? And Barry says the digits to the right of the decimal will be lost. Barry, 100% on the money here. So this is all about variable types. Let's go ahead and prove this. I'm just going to take the opportunity to put a button in to show us that we can trigger macros using buttons. So if you go to Insert, Developer tab, Insert, I recommend this button. On the Windows PC, I recommend holding down the Alt key. That will snap the buttons to the grid, and that will keep them neat and tidy. And then we've got variable tests. So we've got all of our macros stacked up here. We want to choose which macro do we want to run when we click this button. We're benefiting from having macros with informative names. So we've got our variable test here, our buttons in here. Button 1, well, that's not a very informative caption for a button. That doesn't tell the user what's going to happen when they click this button. So let's go to edit text and let's go to show result here. And now we don't need the VBA editor, and this is a much more common way for users to trigger macros. We can just click on this button and we can see suddenly we've got 14. It's not what we expect. 7. No, that is what we expect. So what's happened there? 7 plus 5 plus 5, 5.5. I wasn't expecting that to happen, actually. 7 plus 5 is... Hang on. What's happened here? Show result 14. Let's see what's going on. I'm not sure what's going on, so I've got to debug. I've got to get my meta skills out here. So I'm going to go F4, input 1 equals E5, 7.5. Input 2 equals F5 is 5.5. 7 plus 5 plus 5.5 is, let's do E5 plus F5 here, is 13. And then we're getting 14. Okay, it seems to be rounding these variables up. Is it? Yeah, that seems to be what's happening. Interesting. Okay, I wasn't absolutely expecting that to happen, but it kind of illustrates our learning point, which is the type of variable we use matters. We might get unexpected results if we're not using the right variable. An integer variable is only going to help us deal with whole numbers. Here we're dealing with decimals, aren't we? So how could we make this work? We could use a double variable. For example, a double variable has enough room in its little drawer where it stores the information to store decimals. So I'm going to go double here. Let's play this routine. Let's see what happens. And we now get 13. That's because those double variables are able to store, just going to complete this, change this to a double as well, are able to store decimals too. Going to hit play and I can see 13 there. So just an introduction to variables. The basic idea, they're places to store information that's useful for running the code. This is the basic idea. Then we've got our basic variables. Integer, also look at a string variable that we use for storing text. A double variable for working with decimals. Object variables when we're looping through objects in a collection. So a worksheet, a file, a button, shapes, things like that. These variables are going to help us. Good. And in my programming, I only use probably 6 to 8 variable types. So there's not millions of them. So you can certainly get to grips with this topic. Very good. So let's go and orientate ourselves again. Excuse me, my cough's a little better today. Overnight, I did a few vocal exercises for improving your voice. Where did they go? Went to YouTube. Went to YouTube, of course, did a few overnight. Seems to have made a difference for me. So my voice is feeling a little bit better, but thanks for bearing with me yesterday when my cough was quite bad. Interacting with cells, we've done plenty of that now. We've covered variables. We've covered not one, but 2 different kinds of loops. Let's deal with position control now. We've already touched on position control briefly when we did our crazy routine. Yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and just clear these out, holding down the shift key, using the arrows, hitting delete. This was a routine we ended yesterday's session with. Let's just remind ourselves what it does. It writes these numbers here. So when we're talking about position control, what are we talking about? Well, Excel gives us this beautiful grid. It's your canvas. It's your playground. It gives us this beautiful grid to work with. How well we can manipulate that grid, get ourselves to the right place, put the right value in the right cell. That's a big determinant of how competent, proficient a programmer you are. That is called position control. We're going to just get stuck into one technique, which is this technique right here, offset. Offset, in other words, move away from. So let's do a small test with offset, and then let's try to apply the understanding to that bigger routine. So once again, an informative name for the variable, offset test. And once again, we're just going to have some fun. We're just going to play with it, test some different scenarios. What happens? Does it do what we expect? Yes or no? And then building our understanding that way. But our basic formulation is we give Excel a cell, which is what we call an anchor point. I'm going to say C7 here. And then we move away from that anchor point. We offset. We move away from that anchor point by a certain number of rows and a certain number of columns. It's always rows first and then columns. And it can be a little, we say offset first, of course, then open the brackets, and then Excel gives us a prompt, a bit like when we get prompts with formulae, row offset and then column offset. I'm just going to say 1, 2 here. I'm going to say dot select. What's going to happen here? Well, let's just dig into how these work a little bit. So the first number always controls the row. So we're going to start on C7. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this cell just to remind me. as much as to remind you, let's go to home and let's give it some yellow highlighting here, Windows key and left and escape. So the first number controls the row. A positive number goes down, which can be confusing. A positive number goes down, negative number goes up. And the way to remember that is, well, as we go down Excel, the row numbers actually get higher, don't they? So it kind of makes sense. So the first number is the row, positive number goes down, negative number goes up. The second row is the column, positive number goes to the right. And a good way to illustrate this is to use the column formula just to show us what the column numbers are. So Control R here, copy this across. So you can see Excel associates numbers with columns as well. As those numbers get higher, they get higher as we go to the right. And then a negative number is going to go to the left. So armed with that knowledge, which cell will be selected, might currently be obscured, which cell will be selected when we run this macro, just using the Alt key to reposition this button. I'll throw that out to the chat. Which cell will be selected when we run this macro? Cell will be selected here. Okay, what do you think? So we're starting at C7, C7 dot offset 1, 2. Who can get this one for us? Well, I'm going to work through it very slowly. So we're starting at C7, then we're going one row down, and then we're going 2 columns across. So we've gone one row down, 2 columns across. So I think it's cell E8. I'm going to select a different cell, run this routine, and you can see we're now in cell E8. Okay, interesting, good stuff. So let's try some different numbers. What do we say? 5, 0 here. Yeah, well done to Albert, who said E8. Nice job, Barry. You weren't quite there. Don't worry. It's all good. You'll get the next one. Albert, absolutely on the money. Nice stuff there. Which cell will this select? So let's say C7 offset 5. So this can be C13, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C12, click on a different cell, hit the F5 key to run the routine, and you can see that cell selected. Let's do a final demonstration. Let's go 3, 5 here. Where is this? Let's go 3, 2 actually to keep us on the screen. Where's this going to go? So 3 is 1, 2, 3 down, and then 2 across should take us to E10. It's going to play this. E10 is selected. And then finally, let's just try a couple of negative numbers here. So where's this going to go? It's a bit more difficult, isn't it? -1, -2, or -1 is going to take us a row up, because positive numbers go down, negative numbers go up when we're using offset. And then the second number, -2, well, that's going to go to the left, as you're looking to the left, there, to the left. And so we're going to 1, 2. So we should end up in A6 here. Going to hit play, and we're in A6. But you shouldn't stop there. You shouldn't stop there. If you're watching the replay, make sure you do some more experimentation and play. Develop that skill, develop that confidence. VBA is a skill, just like shooting a basketball. No matter how many drumming videos I watch on YouTube, and I've watched many Carter Beauford fans out there, it doesn't really make me better at drumming. I have to be actually doing drumming to get better at drumming. It's exactly the same with Excel VBA. Good stuff, guys. Got some good guesses coming in here. So take the time to play with that yourself. Get your colleague over, or get your wife over, get your dog over now, show them what you're learning. A great way to test what you've learned is to try to explain it to somebody else. So we've got the basic idea of offset, and once again, on its own, doesn't look particularly exciting, but the magic happens when it synergizes with our other basic techniques in Excel VBA. So what's going on here? We've got a synergy between interacting with cells, because we've referenced our cell, our anchor points, position control using offset, and then the magic of the variable as well. And remember, this variable is in a for next loop, so the value of the variable is going up by 1 each time we go through this routine. Is everything coming together for us? I'm going to hit the F8 key, just remind us how this is all working. So we've been through once, and the value of counter is 1. Just keep your eye on where my cursor is. Going to move it around a sec, and just watch that value increment up. 2, 3, 4, So the value of that variable is going up by 1 each time we go through the loop. So we're offsetting, we're moving away from C4 by the value of the variable. That value is going up by 1, which is having the effect of moving us down the spreadsheet. Super powerful. It's like fish and chips. Here in the UK, we love fish and chips. They just pair together. They synergize beautifully. These techniques synergize beautifully to create magic in Excel. Question for the chat. What if you wanted to write a horizontal list? A list in a row like this. Is that a difficult question? Say I just wanted to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row like that. What changes would I have to make to this code? A little bit of experimentation required, maybe. It's as simple as switching these two components of the code, I believe. Anyway, let's go ahead, hit the F8 key again. So now we've switched these two components. So we're now going 0 rows down, and we're going 1 column across to begin with. So I can see 1 in D4 now. Where's 2 going to appear? 2 is going to appear in E4, 3 is going to appear in F4. I can play that routine. I can do a little bit of resizing here, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. So that's the power of position control, loops, interacting with cells. It's all there, guys. So we're building a really powerful Excel VBA toolbox, and hopefully you're seeing when these techniques combine together, that's really when the magic happens. But the final idea we haven't dealt with is the idea of conditionality. Now, let's deal with the concept first. Conditionality means, well, sometimes when we're building code, if something is happening in the spreadsheet, then we want the code to go in one direction. If something isn't happening in the spreadsheet, we want the code to go in a different direction. So there's this concept of conditionality. A condition is something happening. If that thing is happening, we want to do this. If that thing's not happening, then we actually want to do that. So I'm going to take our routine. Now I'm going to just change this back to what it was originally. If I Control Z this, is that going to work? Yeah, I'm just Control Zing that. Just undoing this. Alt HHN on the Windows PC is going to clear this cell. Now, how might we do this? Okay. What I want to do is I want to get this. So I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. But I want to ask the question: is the number less or more than 3? So I want to have next door. I want to have a list here. So this number is less than 3. This number is also less than 3. So I can go Control D here, autofill down. This number is 3. So I'm going to say, is this number less than or equal to? Or equal to 3? Does that make sense? Is the number less than or equal to 3? This number is less than or equal to 3. Hit the F2 key here. Or equal to 3. Control D. And then this number is more than 3. That's what I'd like to do. As we write the list, I'd like to put an additional piece of information in here. So we're just interacting with the cell, A equals B. We're putting a text string, in this case, into the cell. But it's more complex than that, isn't it? Because there's a condition. If the number is less than or equal to 3, we want one message. If the number is more than 3, then we want a different message. So how to do this? Well, we're going to need another instruction. We're going to need another instruction because our first instruction puts the number in. Our next instruction, it's in a different cell. So to put two values in two cells, certainly different values like this, we're going to have a different instruction here. So how to do this? Right. Okay. So we're going to use the same construct here, range C4, dot offset, counter. But this time I want to go one column further across. So the second number controls the column, a positive number is going to move me to the that way, as you can see it, to the right on the spreadsheet, equals. So I'm just going to say equal to or less than. Okay. What happens now? I'm going to clear this range here. So we're going to start in C4. So I'm just going to move this down, Control X and Control V. So again, stop the video, look at the code, play experimentation, and then let's see what happens. I'm going to just hit play here, and I can see, I'm going to delete these for a second. I can see I've got our list. Then, but it says on all of them, it says equal to or less than 3. So how do we get this idea of conditionality? Let's try it. So this is where if comes in. You must have seen if in coding generally, maybe in Excel VBA. And we just want to say to Excel, if the value is equal to or less than 3, then we want to put this text in. So how do we articulate that using VBA? Once again, it's just about interacting with cells, so you should have a good chance of doing this. But we don't actually need to use the cell, do we? And this is an example of a variable storing some useful information for us, because this counter variable is kind of keeping score. It's counting how many times we're going through the loop. So we can just say if counter is equal to or less than 3, then. This is the key formulation here, a simple if statement. So we're saying to Excel, if, then we're giving the condition, counter is the variable. So if counter is less than or equal to 3, then we want this to happen. Hey, let's give this a go. Let's play this, let's see what happens. And you can see the magic of Excel VBA there. I'm just going to change this to 2 quickly. And then for completeness and accuracy, basic accuracy, let's change it in the text as well. Playing this, we can see that's working pretty well. So that works pretty well, but what about the other half of our message? If the number is more than 2, then we want to put that information in too. So how would we do that? Well, this is a simple one-line if statement. So we've got a condition, and then if that condition is met, this is what we want to happen. But now we want to go in one of 2 directions. Is the number equal to or less than 2, or is the number more than 2? How do we do that? With an if, else, end if statement. If, else, and end if. Now, your instruction has to go on a new line now. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. Very common mistake, and this is the basic formulation, if, else, and end if. If the condition is met, Excel is going to go to the first part of the conditional statement and do this. If the condition is not met, so I'm just going to copy this down, Control C and Control V. Excel is going to go to the second part of the conditional statement, and Excel is going to do this. So do you think this is going to work? Hi, everybody just tuning in. That's a good idea from Barry. Good stuff. Big welcome to Venkata. How are you doing, my friend? And where are you tuning in from? So let's see if we can make this work. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this code. Drop in here, hit play. Let's see what happens. There it is. More to equal to or less than 2. More than 2 is what I should say, of course. Let's go ahead and clear this. And let's play this one more time. Equal to or less than 2, and then more than 2. So it actually seems to be working pretty well there. Okay, there's a final thing I'd like to do. There's one thing bugging me here, which is this value, this control of whether we're saying, you know, our key number, is it equal to or less than or more than this number? It's what we call it's static. Yeah, it's hard coded into this routine. What I'd like to do is to give the user a choice here. I'm going to say target number here, and then whatever number the user puts in here, Alt-H-B-A on the Windows PC, put the borders in. Whatever number the user puts in, That's our target number. So Excel will pivot around that number and say, is the number in the list, is it equal to or less than that number, or is it more than that number? Now, it just looks like a subtle change, but incredibly powerful. We're creating what's called a dynamic solution, So the parameters, the main features of what we're trying to do, they're not hidden away in the code. They're accessible to the user. The user can change them in a dynamic way. So super user friendly. And this principle of something being dynamic rather than static, being changeable rather than hard coded. This is a really important principle in powerful VBA applications. But how would we do it? Once again, a great way to finish this mini course for you would be to stop the video and think about how would you do that? This concept of a target number, how would you do that? I'm going to go ahead and give it a go. So I want a place to store this target number. We could reference the range, but it would be a bit verbose having to reference the range each time. So I'll just like to store that information in the VBA editor so I can reference it easily. How do we do that? Let's create a place to store that information. Dim target number as integer, and I'm going to leave myself a helpful comment here. Store target number from spreadsheet. And, you know, it looks like I'm doing that just for teaching purposes, doesn't it? I'm writing that comment in, but if I show you some of my actual code, and I create some VBA code most days, every line these days is annotated. That's because I've got so many projects. I'm definitely getting old and more forgetful. I really need those prompts. I really need an explanation of what the code does. So we're going to store this target number. How do we do that? We want to get it out of the spreadsheet, into the variable. So we need to interact with the cell. A equals B operation. So target number equals, we're going to say range D4 here. Okay. And then what else do we need to change to make this work? Firstly, let's prove this mechanism we've created to get the value into a variable. Let's prove this is working. I'm going to hit the F8 key here and just hover over the variable. And I can see we've managed to get that value into a variable. This is how we build VBA code. We don't write a load of code, then test it all at the end. We test it step by step. Does each stage work? That's the way to keep your stress levels down. Okay, guys, I'm going back in just a second because my wife is calling me. Got to check she's okay. Everything's okay. It's all good. I'm just aware she's on the way to pick up our daughter. So I just wanted to check everything's okay. Yeah, so we know we've got this number into a variable and we should test step by step. And Charles says, hello to Sharon, my wife. Thank you very much, Charles. I will definitely pass that on. We want to test step by step. So we know we've got this first stage right. Now we want to look through the rest of the code. What parts do we want to change? We know the basic structure is correct. Fundamentally, it's well on the way there. What do we want to change? Well, here's our condition, our conditional statement, our if statements. So rather than having that hard-coded value that we're trying to avoid, let's go ahead and put target number in there. How about that? Is that going to work? It's all about play, experimentation, save the file. Doesn't matter if it works. Yeah, because we love our punch the air moments. Yeah, and we love our punch the air moments. Hope you've had a couple. One of those punch the air moments is just around the corner, guys. Seriously, that's why it's worth persevering with Excel VBA. Okay, I'm just going to hit play here, clear this out, and then hit play. And let's just see what happens. Okay. So it's kind of there, isn't it? Equal to or less than our target number. Yes. The target number isn't correct, is it? Because it says 2. So how can we change this? What's the final step here? Well, we just need to make some adjustments here. And to this text string, we want to add the value in the variable. How to do that? We've got a thing of beauty here. We've got a static text string working dynamically with a variable to display some text that's going to change according to something that the user changes in the spreadsheet. That's a long and very workmanlike definition of what we call dynamic quality. I've got 50 people watching. Big welcome if you're just tuning in. Where are you watching from, guys? Any final questions, put them in the chat. We've got about 5 minutes left, but I've got a special surprise for you at the end. So make sure you hang around for that. So once again, we've done a little bit. So let's not worry about this bit. Let's just test that little bit. I'm going to hit play, and you can see suddenly we've got 4 going in. And I'm going to go ahead and change the target value to 2, back to 2, and play it again. And you can see we're pretty close here. We just need to repeat this little mechanism. Just repeat it down here. We've got a thing of beauty. As I said, we've got a text string. When you have text in speech marks, we call it a text string. You'll use a string variable if you wanted to manipulate that, store it. And the ampersand makes everything work. This and sign, that allows us to concatenate, to join together static text with whatever value we have stored in the variable. How good is this, guys? You know, the magic never goes away completely. You know, obviously I don't get as excited as I used to about VBA, but seriously, I'm getting a little bit excited now. And you've got to foster a positive addiction to that. So let's see the magic happen here. I'm going to hit play. Change this value to 1. There's a challenge. Hit play, and you can see our routine is working nicely. That dynamic quality, different aspects of Excel VBA working together. And that is a beautiful dynamic routine. Have I lit the fire? Have I lit the fire within you? Are you appreciating the possibilities here? I know in your job, or whether you're studying, whether you're thinking about what career to go into, you've got a million things that you're doing. You know, the average professional has so much manual work they do. Yeah, how much time I spend hours worrying about this generally. How much time do professionals generally spend doing manual work? Highly qualified people spend doing manual work. The number one thing that Excel VBA can do is it can automate those manual jobs you're doing by bringing together some of the things we've learned, the big ideas and the techniques. You can have Excel VBA can just have a massive impact in your career. I'm absolutely sure. Paul's here. Paul, where have you been, my man? Paul is one of our original Members Monday members. A big welcome to you, Paul. I'm going to talk more about Members Monday in a second. I've got a special guest who's going to come into the stream in just a second. So hang around for that. But let's do a quick summary. Then we're going to talk a little more about Excel. Then we're going to do a summary, and then we're going to talk about Members Monday. So Phil, big welcome to you. You'll be on a cash forecast model. Just one example of a job that might take ages. So fantastic to have you with us, Phil. Nice job. Good. So let's quickly summarize. What have we covered? Only 2 hours, but hopefully I've lit the fire, and you've got a great little Excel VBA toolkit. You know how to set up files for VBA. You know about the file format. We don't want to lose the code. We've got to change in save in .xlsm, for example. You created your first macro, got that initial excitement of creating a computer programmer. We learned about the power of the macro recorder. So if you ever don't know what some code is, a good way is just to record it using the macro recorder, then review it in the VBA editor. We looked at debugging code, one of our meta skills, of course, so particularly stepping through code, arranging the 2 windows, Excel and VBA, stepping through the VBA editor. And then we had our main techniques, interacting with cells. Variable is just a place to store information. A loop is a way to repeat an instruction any number of times. Conditional statements directs the code in 1 of 2 directions or more according to a condition. Then position control, that's offset, and that gets us to where we need to be in the spreadsheet. But don't get obsessed with the techniques. Obsess about the meta skills, intelligence, and knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. When you're stuck in VBA and you're frustrated, you're getting to the end of your tether, how are you going to bring it in? That's the meta skill. That keeps you in the game. That means we're going to have another VBA warrior out there, and we need you. We need you out there on the battlefield, debugging and knowing how to debug. That's a huge one that's going to keep you in the Excel VBA game. Annotating code properly, knowing where to go for help. You know, Google is good for help. Our Members Monday community is great for help too. And then translation technique to application. So if you want to do a repeated set of instructions, you need a loop, for example. That's an example of translation. They're never giving up and living for those punch the air moments. If your attitude is right, there's so many of those punch the air moments ready for you. Good stuff. Okay, so the whole reason we're here is it's the 100th session tomorrow of our Members Monday community, which is a unique Excel VBA learning community for people like you who are looking to improve their Excel and their Excel VBA. And let me tell you quickly about it. You get 2 live sessions with me. We've got a great little community, you know, the same people coming in each time, able to, you know, create relationships with each other. And we've got people meeting together tomorrow in person from Members Monday. We've got people flying from the States, people coming from Europe, all meeting tomorrow for Members Monday. There's a community page where you can put your questions. There's other things I haven't even mentioned here. And then there's our content navigator. So those 99 streams that we've got, most of them, about 93 of them are exclusive to members. So they've never been on YouTube. So if you enjoy these sessions, you can go ahead, join Members Monday. You'll get instant access to our content navigator, which not only gives you the links to the sessions, each session is broken down into about 12 to 15 topics. So you can navigate to exactly what you want to talk about. But we have one of our members here with us today, and we're going to bring Bart in now. So welcome, Bart. Here's Bart. How are you doing?
Hello.
You take a seat, Bart.
Yeah?
You sit down. I'll just kind of kneel down here.
So this is how it feels in the master seat.
yes. In the yeah. This is it. So Bart, just quickly tell us about your experience with Members Monday.
Yeah.
You can carry on.
Yeah, Members Monday. I've been a member in I think 2 years now. I was the first, I think.
No? Yes, yeah, a founding member.
The experience is incredible, and the advantage is that you're really learning a lot of things in Excel, in VBA, and I've been like everyone looking on the internet, buying books and all of that. But the moment that I subscribed to Members Monday, it's going really fast, and the coding is always getting better. And I think VBA is endless. So now I have also my own company, my small company, started last year. So it's incredible.
And what's it like, Members Monday, apart from the technical stuff and the VBA and the access to the information? What about like interacting with the other members and stuff like that?
For example, a time ago I had a problem, and I posted in the Members Monday community page, and all the members tried to help me and gave me solutions, and then at the end I got this solution. So it's not only learning things, but also there is a group giving you the information that you need and helping each other.
Maybe the encouragement.
Indeed. You're not alone.
Yeah. Fantastic. So that's a little bit about Members Monday. But tomorrow, guys, we've got another session. So I hope you'll join us at 4:00. We're going to have some other members with us. We're going to be talking about our Members Monday community, and then maybe doing a little bit of technical stuff. If you've got any questions, you can put them in the comments. We can deal with those tomorrow. So maybe we'll do a little summary of the technical stuff, but mainly we'll be talking about Members Monday and the experiences that our members have had. And I hope that we can absolutely tempt you in there. The information is in the description below this video. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay.
See you guys. See you later. Bye-bye.